Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. In the first story, we'll tell you what happens when a person who's become a boss begins to look down on junior people and thinks his seniority always means he's right. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Don't tell me how to do my job. I work in the wonderful world of public tenders and calls for bids. As most thing out of the public sector, there are lots of rules and regulations that can become a huge pain in the lower back area. Especially when every single project that comes across your desk is already 3 weeks late and people are blaming you and your stupid regulations. This, sadly, is not my story. I was only a witness in the story that took place between some colleagues. A first colleague, who we'll call Max, was in charge of tenders for foods and kitchen stuff, since the number of active projects at once can become hectic and project updates tended to get lost in your multiple systems. He had a very simple system of huge whiteboard in his office with projects, status, and due dates for bids. Not very technological, but it was simple, efficient, and the team referred to it often. Sadly, Max left for greener pastures and Bob took over his projects. Now, Bob is a hardworking employee, but has the nasty habit of looking down on junior people and thinks his seniority always means he's right. The junior who worked with Max, let's call her Nancy, immediately had problems with Bob, who treated her like his personal secretary rather than his equal. Nancy, nonetheless, did her best to get Bob up to speed on Max's projects and whiteboard system. Whenever Bob had a question, Nancy would remind him to check the whiteboard since it usually had all the up-to-date info. The next day, Bob asked where the bids for Super Cool Project Ninja Report were kept, sealed bids envelopes to be opened on the due date of the tender, so Nancy told him and reminded him not to forget to check the whiteboard for the up-to-date project due date because they can change often and the updates tended to get lost in the system. Bob flipped his crap. Don't tell me how to do my damn job! He took the envelopes and left to open them with a witness, as per protocol. Wouldn't you know it, the due date had in fact been changed to 2 days later, and by opening the bid envelopes early, Bob had rendered them all invalid, but also invalidated any later bids because it could not be proved without a shadow of a doubt that other bidders did not have access to the information contained in the open bids. Like I said, a crapload of rules and regulations. Bob had to cancel the whole thing, which was already 3 weeks late, and the clients were seriously pissed. Later, Bob bitched to another colleague that Nancy should have told him about the date change, only to be told, "Well, Bob, you did tell her not to tell you how to do your damn job." The entire floor can vouch for that. And our second story. No more talking or you're fired. About 4 to 5 years ago, I started working at a local convenience store with a kitchen and drive-thru. This meant we had a cashier inside, people working in the kitchen, frying chicken and making other foods, and also 1 to 2 people working in the drive-thru, running around grabbing heaps of whatever the customer was too lazy to walk inside for. One fine evening, I'd been tasked to work the drive-thru while someone I knew from high school had been positioned to restock the beer and pop coolers. It was pretty awesome because at around 10 to 10:30 p.m., the frequency of customers dropped dramatically, which made my night quite some bit less stressful, along with the guy working in the coolers, who we'll call CG for cooler guy. However, we had the misfortune of working with a bipolar 60-some-year-old, mostly pissy and bitchy woman who was positioned in the kitchen. Now, when working in the kitchen during the night shift, your job is simple: clean and make sandwiches that customers order. We'll call her Rebecca. Toward 10 p.m., it got a smidge slower for me and CG, so every now and then, he'd walk through the drive-thru to grab more beer to stock, the backstock beer coolers behind the drive-thru, and would just make casual conversation while walking to get what he needed without stopping. No problem, right? Hard no. Rebecca asked him to do 3 or 4 things, about half of her responsibilities for the evening, which were the more time and effort-consuming ones, because she wasn't feeling too well. Might I add that she pulled this stunt nearly every shift she worked to go home early and get drunk? So CG politely and kindly says something like, "Sorry, Rebecca, but I'm still trying to catch up on the coolers." OP had a nonstop rush out there with cars out to the road, and it's finally slowing down a little bit out there. By the way, if more than 3 cars are in line, the position kitchen worker is to help the drive-thru worker until it's either empty or there are no more than 2 cars in line. She ignored the motion sensor bell that went off every time a car came in or sat in front of it waiting, and ignored the constant line of cars out to the road. You might be thinking, OP, chill out. How the hell is she supposed to know how many cars are in line? Well, the store's notorious for having a plethora of security cameras covering everything except the inside of the bathroom, which means that there were plenty of cameras pointed at the entrance with numerous televisions displaying that live feed right above the kitchen area where Rebecca was working. At that point, I guess Rebecca contacted our boss, who was also the owner, and told him how OP and CG weren't doing anything but standing in the drive-thru talking while ignoring customers and causing a line, which in turn forced her to help and put her behind schedule. This caused Boss Man who to drive to the store and berate me and CG while telling us that we're effing disgraces of employees and how we should be thanking him every day for the amazing opportunity handed to us. Basically, he hired us and we should be happy for hiring us. After the tantrum he threw, he said, "That's it. Not another word between the two of you. If I or any of your coworkers catch you speaking even a single word, I'll kick your butt out the door," which obviously pissed us off. However, he had no idea how much we loved being a-holes. For the next 3 weeks or month, we didn't speak a single word to each other, but purposely switched positions around so we're working together in the kitchen. I guess people had been calling in and praising our boss for his compassion to hire the differently abled and how the two deaf and mute gentlemen were so helpful without even speaking to not only each other, but to everyone. We cranked it up a notch to everybody after week 2, and the other employees were on board with it. This caused our boss to rush in and ask what the hell we thought we were doing. I tapped CG on the shoulder and showed him the notepad and pen and signaled that I was going to write out what I would say. By the way, we just used hand signals for everything, which got ridiculously over the top and hilarious, and the dipcrap citizens of the town thought it was sign language. I wrote something along the lines of, "You told us not to talk or you'd kick our butts out," which CG wrote, "Yeah, I was taking a Snapchat and saved it. Want to see and hear it?" I love that a-hole. He played it non-stop for everyone to hear. I finally wrote, "Check the security cameras from that night." So about a week later, Boss comes in with his mom, who was great friends with my grandmother. The look of embarrassment made me laugh so hard that I damn near peed. I guess his mom technically owns the business, but he's the face of the business and part owner, so he was always telling her what was going on, and she wasn't too happy when she heard what he said, and even more PO'd when she watched the security footage with him. After I got done laughing at the look on his face, he started saying how Rebecca had made up a huge lie and it pissed him off. His mom had said something like, "I'm so sorry my son had to act like such a butt, honey. Since you had to get treated like that, I think it's only fair you get to speak your mind about it." This woman knew the lengths of my vulgarity and frequent use of it, and had to have known to an extent what was coming. For about 30 minutes, I just got within kissing distance of him and proceeded to make obscene and vulgar gestures in front of him while writing things like, "You sure must feel like a butt," and "You could have talked to us like employees instead of being a jerk." In short, I didn't speak a single word, but wrote enough and made enough gestures to let him know, "F you, dude." And our last story. The police forcibly remove an old family friend from my property, leading to several charges. I am 46-year-old male. The woman in question is an old family friend who I'll call OF. She's also 46. My mother passed away last year from a long battle with cancer. She was in her early 70s and I was an only child, so I inherited everything. Now, I inherited her house, which was a positive. My wife and I had never been able to buy a house after years of struggles and renting, so to finally own our own property was great. We only had to pay out for utilities, and it meant we had a lot more disposable income, and we could finally give our 2 kids, 12-year-old male and 15-year-old female, what they deserved. We moved into the house about 6 months ago, and it started off fine until OF came into the picture. OF's mom was my mom's best friend, but she died years ago, so my mom became like a surrogate mom to her. Unbeknownst to me, my mom said to OF on her deathbed that I'd take care of her, and the house was vaguely mentioned. I think my mom, in her ill state, mentioned giving me the house, and OF wildly misconstrued. So imagine my surprise when, about a month ago, OF turns up in her car with her 3 kids and what looks like some of her belongings. She stepped out and knocked on the door to speak to me. Me: "OF, I wasn't expecting to see you." OF: "Sorry, OP. I wanted to allow you time to grieve. However, I'm here because of what your mom promised me. Me. Promised you? OF. She said you'd look after me in the house, so obviously she wants me and the kids to live here because she wanted us to have the house. Me. What? OF. Isn't this great? The kids and I can finally own our own home. Me. OF. This is my house. I don't know what my mom told you, but she was very ill, very delirious, and in her will, I got everything. OF. That's not right. She promised me I'd be looked after. Me. Well, I'm sorry, but you have no claim to this house or anything she left behind. I'm sorry you've been led to believe that, but this house is owned by my wife, and I would appreciate it if you would leave. OF started kicking up a fuss, demanding to leave, and even got her and the kids out of the car and sat on my lawn. They were there for 3 hours and basically called the cops. The kids were picked up by a relative, but OF refused arrest and was dragged away in a car. She was bailed out, but is facing a minor charge of trespassing and a fine. She's been rallying around everyone in my family to convince them that I robbed her of her inheritance and that I'm an a-hole for denying what's hers. It's so bad I even had to provide proof to the police that my wife and I own the house and even a copy of my mom's will. They even spoke to my mom's lawyers, who all confirm OF doesn't have a legal foot to stand on. She's continued to harass my family and is now facing charges of harassment. Edit 1. It was already in discussions with my lawyer and the police, but I think I'm going to press ahead anyway with a restraining order to protect my assets and my family. I'm also going to press ahead with these charges. I'm also thinking of getting the right permission to do so and installing CCTV on my property. Her kids are around the same age as my daughter and slightly older, so they're old enough they could pull some crazy crap too. Edit 2. I need to make it clear. I was the carer for my mom, and I gave up work to make her final days easier. OF didn't bother showing up a lot and even went months with no appearance. She only showed up a lot when my mom was on her deathbed, on a lot of medication, and was very weak. It's crazy she would even think your mother would leave her the house and not you, and wouldn't even speak to you first. She has no foot to stand on, and you were polite, so you did nothing wrong. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.